everybody. Greetings from Austin, Texas. I'm excited to share that I brought along a few friends to help me tell my story. These are my backyard chickens. My son Oscar, many years ago when we got our first flock, actually started the tradition of naming our chickens after spices. So I'm really excited to share with you and introduce you to our chickens: nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, sage, and harissa. Now you're probably asking yourself at this point, why the heck is Ann up there talking about her chickens? Well, it turns out that it's actually a real challenge to count all of my chickens and all of my eggs. And I need to be able to do that in order to know how much chicken feed to buy and how many eggs that I can have for Sunday breakfast, right? Well, it turns out that that's actually a really good analogy for the 2020 census and the challenges of counting every single Texan in our beautiful, vast, and rapidly growing state. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about the 2020 census and why it matters, why there's a really big risk of an undercount in Texas, and what we're doing about it at the Center for Public Policy Priorities. First of all, Texas is really big. You know that, right? We've got a lot of land and a lot of people. In fact, if you flip our state to the east, we get all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. And if you flip us to the west, we get all the way to the Pacific. And if you flip us upside down, we get all the way to Canada. And we are big not just in terms of land, but in terms of people. We are so proud to have 28 million Texans. 1 in 11 Americans lives in our state. And we're so proud to be at the leading edge of a demographic shift nationally, and to be one of 4 states that's already a majority people of color. We're also really proud to have 17% of Texans foreign born, and we just know that that's such a strength for our great state. Unfortunately, the news about Texas is not all good, and we face a lot of challenges. We are one of the worst states for income inequality. We're in the bottom 10 states for child well-being, and we have one of the highest rates of low-wage jobs in the country. And that is despite our being a very wealthy state. So all of these facts about Texas mean that the impact of the 2020 census is going to be even greater. We stand to gain up to 3 new congressional seats if everyone is counted in the census. Our businesses rely on accurate data in order to kind of know where to grow, and our quality of life will be deeply impacted by whether or not we get the federal dollars for the programs that we deserve. In fact, Texas gets $59 billion, yes, that's a B, every year in federal funds. And what the research shows is that that means that even if there was just a 1% undercount, we could lose up to $300 million a year if we have a significant undercount, right? Unfortunately, though, the risk of an undercount is even higher in Texas. 25% of Texans live in hard-to-count communities, and those include children under 5, immigrants, and people of color. So we were asking ourselves at the center, what in the world are we going to do about it? Well, it all started with SPP fellow Cassie Davis, who started working. You beat me to it. So I want to just not give another round of applause for Cassie, but for every one of the SPP fellows who brings so much strength and leadership to this incredible network. Can we just have another round of applause? So this work started when Cassie started to work on a one-pager about the census. And as she dug into the numbers, she became more and more alarmed about the high risk of an undercount in Texas and what it was going to mean for Texas families. At the same time, Luis Figueroa, our legislative and policy director, started advocating for a bill during the legislative session which would create an official state complete count committee and devote dollars in the state budget to the census. Unfortunately, you would think that, of course, the elected leaders in our state would have been like, this is a no-brainer. Of course we should be advocating for a full census count. But unfortunately, Texas legislators are not always known for their brains. And I'm sorry, I can't resist telling a little funny holiday story here. Many years ago, the ACLU actually threatened to sue the state of Texas because legislators had put up a nativity scene on the Capitol grounds. Well, our former Governor, Ann Richards, who, as you know, was a very funny person, said in response, "Oh, please don't take down that manger because that's the closest 3 wise men ever got to the Texas Capitol." Okay, so all joking aside, this is actually a really serious issue we were facing, because despite all of our advocacy at the Capitol and all the work that we were doing, we were getting nowhere at the Capitol. Now, why was that? Well, as you all know, the Trump administration tried to add a citizenship question to the census. And not only did that create growing fear among our immigrant families, but it also deeply politicized the census. In fact, we found out later through the media that there was a memo that made a direct link between who was counted in the census and Republican control of redistricting in our state. And you all know, unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say that, nonpartisan and all that, okay. You all know that our state is controlled, all 3 branches, by Republicans, right? And it turns out that all of our population growth was in districts and counties that were primarily Democratic. And so guess what? Even though it was cutting off their nose to spite their face, they didn't want to count people in districts that might elect Democrats instead of Republicans. And unfortunately, this is part of a very long and ugly history and legacy of racism and violence and disenfranchisement of people of color in our state. So we knew that the stakes were incredibly high and that we had to do more. So since we weren't having any success at the Capitol, we were working really hard back at the office. Cassie continued to raise awareness about the challenges with the census, and I quickly caught census fever too. And all of us were running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Trying to answer questions from people that were calling from all over the state, funders and community members and more. And all of them were desperate for help and leadership. And we kept waiting for some other organization to step forward and do something about it and start an unofficial effort, complete count effort in our state. But no one did. And the clock kept ticking towards the census. So what did we do? Well, our census action team sprang into action. So from the beginning, we envisioned a 2-pronged campaign. We knew that we needed a campaign that would connect people in communities who needed help and support on the census to those resources and help. And at the same time, we knew that we needed help from our partners in philanthropy because somebody needed to fund those efforts on the ground in communities. And so we launched our effort and we called it Texas Counts. And we knew that okay, I gotta explain this, you guys. That we were gonna need even more capacity to sort of do this work. And so we hired another staff person, our wonderful Census Community Engagement Coordinator, Katie Martin Lightfoot. And we knew that Katie was the right person for the job when she showed up to the interview in a taco costume. Okay. Actually, this was a few weeks later. This was Halloween. In fact, we knew that she was completely awesome because she had been a C-12P intern. So now I want to shout out for the importance of the leadership pipeline in our organizations. Can we just please? Okay. So what did we start doing next? We knew we wanted to model our efforts off local complete count committees, and so we just started calling all of our friends and partners around the state in faith, business, healthcare, and more. And pretty soon they were all calling their friends and activating their networks. So our nonprofit partners started calling the United Ways. They started calling the League of Women Voters, Goodwills of Texas, Texas Boys and Girls Club, and more. Our business leaders started calling and activating businesses and chambers all over the state, and our government subcommittee leaders, which was headed up by Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins and our state demographer, started working with state officials and state agencies and local officials. And pretty soon, because we had, had staffed up and we had these, these partners in place, we were able to grow our Texas Counts partners from just a few dozen at the beginning to over 100 in just a few weeks, actually. And we knew at the same time that we had to have some kind of centralized resource for providing and supporting resources to people in the farthest away places in Texas. And so we hired a PR firm that had experience in grassroots communities and working with multiple stakeholders. And they built this beautiful TexasCounts.org website. And not only does it provide tools and resources for anyone who needs it, it provides a community forum like the one that you see up here that enables anyone, no matter where they are in Texas, to plug into resources and to ask questions of partners who are working on the very same issues in their communities. At the same time, our friends in philanthropy were busy raising money. And our friends at the Communities Foundation of Texas have so far raised $1.3 million for the pooled fund. Cassie persuaded the Central Texas Funders Network to devote another $300,000 to the Central Texas outreach work. After I gave a presentation to the Hogg Foundation, one of our state foundations, they devoted another $2 million to our census work, and we've all worked together to persuade our national partners at the New Venture Fund to put more money into our state. Once we had these building blocks in place, we knew that we could focus in on our strategy. And so Cassie Davis and Cindy G on our terrific research team worked with our partners in philanthropy to do this sophisticated landscape analysis. We have 254 counties in Texas, and we knew that we couldn't provide the same level of support to all of them. So this analysis that was done looks at a whole range of different pieces of information, including primarily, of course, where the highest number and percentage are of hard-to-count communities, and that's the information that we're using to know where to dedicate even more hands-on support. So Katie and Cassie and all the members of our research team are now going to be able to focus in and provide an even higher level of support to the highest need counties in our state. I am so excited to share that after all of this work, on November 21st, which was just a few weeks ago, we were actually able to launch Texas Counts. We had a wonderful press conference. We had partners from every sector and from all over the state, and it was a huge success. And I am just so proud and grateful for all of the work that my incredible team and all of our partners around the state have done so far to raise awareness about this, about the importance of the census and to get us back on track. So, why did we make the decision as an organization to invest so much of our time and energy into the census, right? Well, a few reasons. First of all, because we are a data-first organization, and everything we do depends on accurate data in the census. Second of all, we knew the census would have a huge impact on our priority issues: healthcare, education, public services, and more. And we knew it was a great return on investment to work on the census to advance those issues. Next, we knew that by meeting new partners and influencers around the state in our census work, we would have those growing partners to work on all of our other advocacy priorities. And in fact, we've met so many wonderful new partners: county judges, grassroots leaders, and more all over the state through this work. And finally, we knew that the census would help us tell the story about what is wrong with Texas and how to fix it. And, I would just say that in closing, I want to just say that the moral of this story is not count your chickens before they hatch. It is count every chicken, every single one of them, because the future of our democracy and our communities depends on it. Thank you very much.